The day the police knocked on my door asking about a debt I never owed, that was the day I stopped believing in family loyalty. I'm standing in my kitchen, hands shaking, staring at two officers filling my doorway. Behind me, my 7-year-old daughter Mira peeks around the corner, her eyes wide with confusion. My neighbors are already gathering at their windows, curtains twitching, phones probably recording. And all I can think is she actually did it. Vivian actually called the cops on me. "Ma'am, we need to ask you about a financial dispute," the taller officer says, his voice professional but tired. "A Mrs. Vivian Blake filed a report claiming you borrowed $3,500 and refused to pay it back." The words hit me like ice water. My mouth opens, but nothing comes out at first. Because how do you explain to strangers that your stepmother is a liar? That she spent 20 years perfecting the art of making me look like the problem? That's not true. I finally manage. I never borrowed money from her. She asked me for money 2 days ago, and I said no. The officer writes something down. "We're not here to make arrests, ma'am. We just need to file a report. You'll have a chance to give your statement, but the damage is already done." My daughter is scared. My reputation in this quiet suburban neighborhood is now a question mark. And Vivian? She's probably sitting in her pristine living room right now, sipping tea, satisfied that she's finally punished me for saying no. After the officers leave, I sit on my couch, phone in hand, trembling with something I haven't felt in years, rage. Not the loud, screaming kind. The quiet kind. The dangerous kind. The kind that makes decisions instead of excuses. Hi viewers, kindly tell us where you're watching from and what time it is. Warm welcome to the family. Enjoy the story. Let me take you back 3 weeks. Back to when I still believed peace was possible. Back to the day everything started falling apart. My daughter's 7th birthday party. My name is Rowena Blake, and for most of my life, I've been the family punching bag. The one who smiles through insults. The one who keeps the peace by swallowing her pain. My mother died when I was 8. Cancer took her fast, left my father broken. 3 years later, he married Vivian. Beautiful, cold, immaculate Vivian. She smelled like expensive perfume and disappointment. To the outside world, she was charming. Interior designer. Perfect house. Perfect Christmas cards. To me, she was a constant reminder that love had conditions and I never met them. She'd say things like, "You're just like your mother, Rowena." Always playing victim. Or, "If you want respect, stop being so emotional." When I turned 18, she convinced my father to cut my college support to teach me responsibility. I worked 2 jobs, earned a scholarship through sheer exhaustion. The day I graduated, she said, "Good. You did it your way. Don't come crying for help later." I didn't. I built a life far from her shadow. Married Ian, a carpenter with rough hands and a gentle heart. Had Mira, who laughs like sunshine. We live modestly, but we live happy. Then came Myra's birthday. I wanted something simple, neighbors, friends, cake on the lawn. But my father insisted Vivian be invited. "She's family," he said on the phone. "She's Myra's grandmother." "She's never acted like it," I replied. "Rowena, don't make this another fight. Just invite her." So I did. Against every instinct screaming no, I sent an invitation. Her reply came the next morning. "Of course, dear." I wouldn't miss it for the world. The party was beautiful. Yellow balloons everywhere, because Mira loves yellow. Kids running across our small lawn. Laughter spilling into the street. Mira wore a daisy dress she'd saved her allowance to buy. She'd made Vivian a card, glued sequins on the edges, wrote, "I love you, Grandma," in careful letters. I kept checking my phone. Noon. 1 o'clock. 2. By 3, I called Vivian. Straight to voicemail. By 4, the cake was cut, kids were leaving, and Mira kept glancing at the driveway, waiting. "Mommy, is Grandma coming?" she asked quietly. I knelt down, smoothed her hair. "She got busy, sweetheart. She'll call later." Mira nodded, but I saw it. That small tremble of her lip. The way she carefully set the card aside, sequins catching the light. That night, after everyone left and Mira was asleep, I sat on my porch step staring at my phone. Still nothing. The silence felt deliberate. Cool. Then, at 9:43 p.m., my phone buzzed. One text from Vivian. Sorry, dear. Something came up. Hope the party went well. By the way, could you give me a call tomorrow? I need to discuss a small matter. No apology. No acknowledgement of what she'd done to Mira. Just a small matter. I should have known right then. I should have seen it coming. But I called her the next morning anyway. Because that's what I always did. I showed up. I tried. I hoped. She answered on the third ring, voice dripping with false warmth. Rowena. Lovely party yesterday, I'm sure. You didn't come, I said quietly. Oh, you know how life is. Things came up. Anyway, I didn't want to bother you during a child's party with my problems. What problems? A calculated pause. Then, my car broke down. The repair bill is around $3,500. I was hoping you could help me out. Just temporarily. I'll pay you back in a month. I almost laughed. She and my father lived in a house 3 times the size of mine. 2 brand new cars in the driveway. And I work part-time at a school library, barely scraping by. Vivian, I said slowly, I don't have that kind of money. Her tone shifted instantly. Hard. Sharp. Don't act like you're some struggling orphan, Rowena. Your father has been generous over the years. That word. Orphan. She used it like a weapon. I'm sorry, I said. I can't lend you that money. Silence. Then, ice cold. You'll regret this attitude. Families should support each other. She hung up. 2 days later, the police were at my door. Would you forgive someone who did this to you? Let me know in the comments. And if you want to hear how this story ends, subscribe because quiet justice is about to get loud. I learned early that love could be bought and sold. My mother died on a Tuesday. I remember because I was wearing my Tuesday underwear, the ones with little stars on them. I was 8 years old, sitting in a hospital waiting room that smelled like bleach and sadness, when my father came out and said, "She's gone, Rowena." Just like that. Gone. For 3 years, it was just us. My father became a ghost who wore ironed shirts and forgot to smile. He worked late, skipped dinners, stared at old photos like they might bring her back. Then came Vivian. She walked into our lives at a charity fundraiser, all sharp cheekbones and designer perfume. My father introduced her 2 weeks later, like she was a prize he'd won. This is Vivian. She's going to make us a family again. I was 11. I didn't want a new family. I wanted my mom. Vivian moved in 6 months later. She redecorated everything, new curtains, new furniture, new rules. My mother's photos disappeared into boxes in the attic. Her garden died. Even her favorite coffee mug vanished. We're moving forward, not backward, Vivian said when I asked where everything went. Moving forward meant I became invisible. Vivian didn't yell or hit. She did something worse. She made me feel like I didn't deserve space. At dinner, she'd talk over me. When I got good grades, she'd say, "Well, you should. Your father pays for that school." When I cried, she'd sigh. "You're just like your mother." So dramatic. I learned to stay quiet, to take up less room, to earn love through perfect behavior that was never quite perfect enough. The worst part? My father let it happen. He'd nod along when Vivian criticized me. He'd look tired when I tried to tell him how I felt. Eventually, I stopped trying. By 18, I was desperate to leave. College was my escape plan. I applied to state schools, small scholarships, anything. When my acceptance letter came, I showed my father, hoping he'd be proud. He smiled. "That's great, honey. Vivian and I were just talking about your future." That's when she dropped the bomb. "We think you should pay your own way," Vivian said sweetly. "It builds character." My parents did the same for me. My father nodded. "You're an adult now, Rowena. Time to be responsible." I worked 2 jobs that year. Morning shifts at a diner, night shifts at a campus library. I slept 4 hours a night, lived on ramen and coffee, and somehow kept my grades high enough for a partial scholarship. Graduation day, I walked across that stage exhausted but free. My father came. Vivian wore a cream-colored dress and took photos for her social media. Afterward, she hugged me, the first time in years, and whispered, "See? You didn't need our help after all." That sentence haunted me for years, because she made my suffering sound like success, my pain like proof I was finally worthy. I moved out the next month. Met Ian at a farmer's market where he was selling handmade bookshelves. He had sawdust in his hair and smiled like he meant it. We got married 2 years later in a small ceremony Vivian called quaint, which was her word for cheap. When Mira was born, I thought maybe things would change. Maybe becoming a grandmother would soften Vivian. It didn't. She sent expensive gifts on birthdays, toys Mira never asked for, dresses too fancy for a toddler. But she rarely visited, rarely called. When she did show up, she'd take photos, post them online with captions like "blessed grandmother," then leave after 20 minutes. Mira learned early not to expect much from her. So when my father insisted Vivian come to Myra's 7th birthday, I should have known better. But some part of me, that little girl who still wanted approval, hoped this time would be different. It wasn't. And now, sitting in my kitchen after the police left, I finally understood something. Vivian didn't just ignore Myra's party out of cruelty.
She did it to set me up.
To create a situation where I'd owe her something, where she could swoop in, play savior, and make me grateful. But I said no. And that's when she decided to destroy me. My phone buzzed. A text from my father. "Vivian told me what happened with the police. We need to talk." Here we go, I thought. Time for him to defend her again. Time for me to be the problem. But this time, I wasn't backing down. 3 days before the party, I was frosting a homemade cake in my kitchen when Mira ran in, waving a piece of construction paper. "Mommy, look. I made Grandma Vivian a card." She'd glued sequins around the edges, the cheap kind that shed glitter everywhere. Inside, in her careful 7-year-old handwriting, "I love you, Grandma. Thank you for coming to my party." My chest tightened. "That's beautiful, baby. Do you think she'll like it?" Mira asked, eyes hopeful. I wanted to say, "She won't even notice it." But instead I smiled. "She'll love it. That's what you do as a parent. You lie to protect your kid's heart, even when you know it's going to break anyway." The morning of the party, our house buzzed with chaos. Ian strung yellow balloons across the porch. I set up tables in the backyard. Mira changed outfits 3 times before settling on her daisy dress, the one she'd saved her allowance for 2 months to buy. "Do I look pretty?" she asked, spinning. "You look perfect," I said, and meant it. By noon, kids started arriving. Neighbors, classmates, a few of Ian's co-workers' children. The yard filled with noise, laughter, squealing, the sound of childhood joy. I kept glancing at my phone, waiting for Vivian's text saying she was close. Nothing. 1 o'clock came. I texted her. "Hey, just checking in. Party started at noon. See you soon." No response. At 2 I called. Straight to voicemail. My father didn't answer either. Ian noticed me checking my phone every 5 minutes. "She's not coming, is she?" "She said she would," I replied, but even I didn't believe it anymore. Mira kept asking, "When's Grandma getting here?" Each time, I made an excuse. Traffic. Errands. Running late. By 3, the other kids were leaving. We sang Happy Birthday. Mira blew out her candles, 7 pink ones, shaped like stars. She smiled for the photos, but I saw it. That flicker of disappointment when she glanced at the driveway one more time. "Mommy, can I call Grandma?" she asked quietly. "She's probably just busy, sweetheart. She'll call later." Mira nodded, but she set the sequined card aside, undelivered. After the last guest left, Ian and I cleaned up in silence. Deflated balloons littered the grass like sad little ghosts. I threw away half a cake nobody wanted. Mira sat on the porch steps, still in her daisy dress, staring at nothing. Ian touched my shoulder. "You okay?" "No," I said. And I wasn't. That night, after Mira finally fell asleep clutching her new stuffed rabbit, I sat on the porch with my phone. The anger I'd swallowed all day was rising like bile. Vivian hadn't just missed a party. She'd broken a promise to a child. My child. At 9:43 p.m., my phone buzzed. One text. No apology. Just, sorry, dear. Something came up.
Hope the party went well.
By the way, could you give me a call tomorrow? I need to discuss a small matter. I stared at those words until they blurred. Something came up. A small matter. No acknowledgement of Mira. No explanation. Just casual cruelty wrapped in politeness. Ian came outside, handed me tea. You're shaking. She didn't even apologize, I whispered. She never does, he said gently. That night, I barely slept. I kept replaying Myra's face, that hopeful look every time a car drove past. The way she'd held that card all day, waiting. The next morning, I called Vivian. She answered on the third ring, voice bright and fake. Rowena, I'm sure the party was lovely. You didn't come. Oh, you know how things are. Life gets hectic. She sighed dramatically. Anyway, I didn't want to burden you with my problems during a child's celebration. My jaw clenched. What problems?
Pause.
Calculated. Rehearsed. Well, my car broke down. The repair shop quoted me $3,500. Can you believe it? I was hoping you could help me out. Just a loan. I'll pay you back next month. The audacity knocked the air out of me. She ghosted my daughter's birthday. Didn't call, didn't apologize. And now she wanted money. Vivian, I don't have that kind of money, I said slowly. Her tone shifted. Cold. Sharp. Don't play poor with me, Rowena. Your father has supported you for years. You've benefited plenty. I'm not lending you money. Silence. Then, ice in her voice, you'll regret this attitude. Family supports each other. The line went dead. I sat there, phone in hand, heart pounding. For the first time in my life, I'd said no to Vivian. And I had no idea what she'd do next. 2 days after I refused Vivian's demand, a police cruiser pulled up outside my house. I was folding laundry in the living room when I saw the flashing lights through the window. My stomach dropped. Police don't just show up for no reason. Ian was at work. Mira was coloring at the kitchen table. I opened the front door before they could knock, hoping to keep this quiet. 2 officers stood on my porch, one older with gray at his temples, one younger, maybe fresh out of the academy. Are you Rowena Blake? The older one asked. Yes, I said, mouth dry. Is something wrong? He pulled out a small notepad. We received a report about a financial dispute. A Mrs. Vivian Blake claims you borrowed $3,500 from her last month and have refused to repay it. The world tilted. What? I breathed. She filed a complaint this morning, he continued. Provided a written statement. We're not here to arrest anyone, but we do need to document both sides. My hands started shaking. That's not true. I never borrowed money from her. She asked me for money 2 days ago, and I said no. The younger officer scribbled notes. Do you have any proof of that? Yes. Text messages. Phone records. The older officer nodded. Good. You'll want to gather those. If she pursues this further, you may need them. Behind me, I heard Myra's small voice. Mommy? I turned. She stood in the hallway, eyes wide, clutching her coloring book. Fear written all over her face. It's okay, baby, I said, voice cracking. Go back inside. She didn't move. The officers exchanged glances. The older one softened. Ma'am, I've seen situations like this before. Family disputes can get messy. My advice? Document everything. And consider getting ahead of this legally if needed. She's lying, I said, louder than I meant to. She's lying because I wouldn't give her money. Then prove it, he said gently. That's all you can do. After they left, I closed the door and sank to the floor. Mira ran over, wrapped her small arms around my neck. Are you in trouble, Mommy?
No, sweetheart.
It's just a misunderstanding. But it wasn't. This was calculated. Vivian had weaponized the police to humiliate me, to punish me for saying no. I pulled out my phone with trembling hands and scrolled to her number. Hit call. She answered on the first ring, like she'd been waiting. Why are you doing this? I demanded, voice shaking. Doing what? She asked innocently. You called the police. You lied to them. I simply reported what happened, Rowena. If you feel that's a lie, perhaps you should reflect on your choices. I didn't borrow anything from you. Her voice turned cold. You embarrassed me. After everything this family has done for you, you treated me like I was beneath you. Now everyone will see what kind of person you really are. Vivian, you should have helped me when I asked nicely. The line went dead. I sat there on my kitchen floor, Mira still clinging to me, and something inside me finally snapped. Not with rage. Not with tears. With clarity. For years, I'd believed Vivian's cruelty was my fault. That if I just tried harder, behaved better, stayed quieter, she'd finally accept me. But the truth was simpler. She didn't want acceptance. She wanted control. And the moment I stopped giving it to her, she tried to destroy me. Ian came home an hour later. I told him everything. He listened, jaw tight, hands clenched. We're getting a lawyer, he said. We can't afford. I don't care. We're not letting her do this. That night, after Mira was asleep, I sat at my laptop and started printing everything. Every text from Vivian. Every voicemail. The party invitation. Her reply. Her request for money. The timestamps. The threats. Years of small cruelties suddenly transformed into evidence. If Vivian wanted a war, she'd get one. But it wouldn't be loud. It wouldn't be ugly. It would be quiet, thorough, devastating. Because sometimes the best revenge isn't fire. It's ice. 1 week later, an envelope arrived in the mail. Small. Official-looking. Return address. County Courthouse. My hands shook as I opened it. Inside was a summons for small claims court. Vivian was suing me for $3,500 plus court fees and emotional distress. Ian read it over my shoulder. She's actually doing this. Yeah, I whispered. She is. Part of me still couldn't believe it. This was my stepmother, the woman who'd raised me, in her own cold way. And now she was dragging me into court over a lie. But another part of me, the part that had been quietly keeping records for years, felt strangely calm. Because I'd been preparing for this moment without even knowing it. Every cruel text I'd screenshot, just in case. Every voicemail I hadn't deleted. Every birthday Myra's grandmother missed, documented in photo timestamps and unanswered calls. I wasn't a victim anymore. I was a witness. The court date was set for 3 weeks out. I spent those weeks gathering everything. I made a timeline, printed phone records showing when she called asking for money, after the party, not before. Pulled up the text where she said something came up, instead of apologizing to Mira. I even found the hospital records from when my mother died and the date Vivian moved in just to show the court who she really was. A stranger who'd erased my mother and claimed our family as her own. My father called twice during those 3 weeks. I didn't answer. He left voicemails. Rowena, please. Let's sit down and talk about this. Vivian's very upset. You're making this bigger than it needs to be. She just wants what she's owed. What she's owed. Like I was some kind of debtor. The night before court, I couldn't sleep. Ian held me in the dark. What if they believe her? I whispered. They won't. You have proof. She's good at lying. And you're good at telling the truth. That's stronger. I wanted to believe him. But Vivian had spent 20 years making people believe her version of reality. Why would a judge be any different? The morning of the hearing, I put on the nicest outfit I owned, a navy dress Ian's mom had given me for job interviews. Simple. Respectable. The opposite of Vivian's designer everything. Ian offered to come, but I said no. Someone needed to stay with Mira. And, honestly, I needed to do this alone. The courthouse was smaller than I expected. Beige walls. Fluorescent lights. People sitting on benches looking tired and anxious. Then I saw them. Vivian sat near the front, wearing a cream suit and pearls. Her hair was perfect. Her posture was perfect. She looked like someone who'd never told a lie in her life. And next to her, my father. He looked older. Thinner. When our eyes met, he flinched. I sat on the opposite side of the room, alone. 20 minutes later, they called our case. We stood before the judge, a woman in her 50s with sharp eyes and no patience for nonsense. "Mrs. Blake," she said to Vivian, "you're claiming the defendant borrowed money and refuses to repay. Correct?" "Yes, Your Honor." Vivian's voice was soft. "Wounded. Last month, she came to me asking for help. She said she was struggling. I gave her $3,500, and now she won't return my calls."
A lie. Clean.
Simple. Believable. The judge turned to me. "And your response?" I took a breath. "That never happened, Your Honor. She asked me for money. I said no. And then she called the police and filed this lawsuit." Vivian gasped softly, playing the victim perfectly. The judge frowned. "Do you have evidence?" "Yes." I handed over my folder. Text messages. Phone records. The timeline. The judge read in silence. The room was so quiet I could hear my own heartbeat. Finally, she looked up. "Mrs. Blake," the plaintiff, "do you have any proof a loan was made? A bank transfer? A signed agreement? Anything?" Vivian hesitated. "It was verbal." "Verbal," the judge repeated flatly.
Yes.
"Family doesn't always put things in writing." The judge glanced back at my evidence. Then, at Vivian. "Ms. Rowena Blake's phone records show you initiated contact 2 days after a missed event, a child's birthday party. You then requested financial assistance. She declined. 48 hours later, you filed a police report claiming she owed you money." Silence. "Mrs. Blake, do you deny requesting money from the defendant?" Vivian's mask cracked. "Just slightly." She's twisting. "Yes or no?" I may have asked, but... Case dismissed. The judge's gavel came down like thunder. I stood there, frozen. Vivian's face went white. My father stared at the floor. And just like that, it was over. I learned early that love could be bought and sold. My mother died on a Tuesday. I remember because I was wearing my Tuesday underwear, the ones with little stars on them. I was 8 years old, sitting in a hospital waiting room that smelled like bleach and sadness, when my father came out and said, "She's gone, Rowena."
Just like that. Gone. For 3 years, it was just us.
My father became a ghost who wore ironed shirts and forgot to smile. He worked late, skipped dinners, stared at old photos like they might bring her back. Then came Vivian. She walked into our lives at a charity fundraiser, all sharp cheekbones and designer perfume. My father introduced her 2 weeks later, like she was a prize he'd won.
"This is Vivian.
She's going to make us a family again." I was 11. I didn't want a new family. I wanted my mom. Vivian moved in 6 months later. She redecorated everything, new curtains, new furniture, new rules. My mother's photos disappeared into boxes in the attic. Her garden died. Even her favorite coffee mug vanished. "We're moving forward, not backward," Vivian said when I asked where everything went. Moving forward meant I became invisible. Vivian didn't yell or hit. She did something worse. She made me feel like I didn't deserve space. At dinner, she'd talk over me. When I got good grades, she'd say, "Well, you should. Your father pays for that school." When I cried, she'd sigh, "You're just like your mother." So dramatic. I learned to stay quiet, to take up less room, to earn love through perfect behavior that was never quite perfect enough. The worst part?
My father let it happen.
He'd nod along when Vivian criticized me. He'd look tired when I tried to tell him how I felt. Eventually, I stopped trying. By 18, I was desperate to leave. College was my escape plan. I applied to state schools, small scholarships, anything. When my acceptance letter came, I showed my father, hoping he'd be proud. He smiled. "That's great, honey. Vivian and I were just talking about your future." That's when she dropped the bomb. "We think you should pay your own way," Vivian said sweetly. "It builds character." My parents did the same for me. My father nodded. "You're an adult now, Rowena. Time to be responsible." I worked 2 jobs that year. Morning shifts at a diner, night shifts at a campus library. I slept 4 hours a night, lived on ramen and coffee, and somehow kept my grades high enough for a partial scholarship. Graduation day, I walked across that stage exhausted but free. My father came. Vivian wore a cream-colored dress and took photos for her social media. Afterward, she hugged me, the first time in years, and whispered, "See? You didn't need our help after all." That sentence haunted me for years, because she made my suffering sound like success, my pain like proof I was finally worthy. I moved out the next month. Met Ian at a farmer's market where he was selling handmade bookshelves. He had sawdust in his hair and smiled like he meant it. We got married 2 years later in a small ceremony Vivian called quaint, which was her word for cheap. When Mira was born, I thought maybe things would change. Maybe becoming a grandmother would soften Vivian. It didn't. She sent expensive gifts on birthdays, toys Mira never asked for, dresses too fancy for a toddler. But she rarely visited, rarely called. When she did show up, she'd take photos, post them online with captions like "blessed grandmother," then leave after 20 minutes. Mira learned early not to expect much from her. So when my father insisted Vivian come to Myra's 7th birthday, I should have known better. But some part of me, that little girl who still wanted approval, hoped this time would be different. It wasn't. And now, sitting in my kitchen after the police left, I finally understood something. Vivian didn't just ignore Myra's party out of cruelty.
She did it to set me up.
To create a situation where I'd owe her something, where she could swoop in, play savior, and make me grateful. But I said no. And that's when she decided to destroy me. My phone buzzed. A text from my father. "Vivian told me what happened with the police. We need to talk." Here we go, I thought. Time for him to defend her again. Time for me to be the problem. But this time, I wasn't backing down. 3 weeks after my father's revelation, Vivian moved out. I didn't witness it. Didn't want to. But my father called me that evening, voice tired and hollow. "She's gone," he said simply. "Where?" "Her sister's place in Michigan. She's claiming I blindsided her. That I'm the villain in all this." I almost laughed. Of course she was rewriting the narrative. That's what Vivian did best. "How are you doing?" I asked. Honestly, I feel like I woke up from a 20-year dream, and I don't recognize my life. I understood that feeling better than anyone. We talked for an hour that night, longer than we'd talked in years. He told me things I'd never known. How Vivian had slowly isolated him from old friends. How she'd convinced him that boundaries with me were healthy distance. How she'd made him feel guilty every time he tried to reach out. "I thought I was protecting our marriage," he said. "I didn't realize I was losing my daughter." "You didn't lose me," I said softly. "I've been here the whole time." I know that now. It wasn't forgiveness. Not yet. But it was a start. That weekend, my father came to visit. First time in 3 years he'd been to our house. He brought Mira a stuffed elephant, her favorite animal, and apologized for missing her birthday. "I should have been there," he told her. "And I'm sorry." Mira, in that effortless way children have, just hugged him and said, "It's okay, Grandpa. You're here now." Ian grilled burgers. We ate on the back porch. My father laughed at Myra's jokes, complimented Ian's carpentry, looked at me like he was seeing me for the first time. It was strange, fragile, but real. After dinner, Mira fell asleep on the couch, and my father helped me clean up. "Vivian's been posting on Facebook," he said quietly, scrubbing a plate. "Inspirational quotes about toxic people and fresh starts." I dried a dish, said nothing. "She's painting herself as the victim," he continued. "Says she gave everything to this family and got nothing back." "Let her," I said. "People who know the truth know the truth. The rest don't matter." He nodded slowly. "You're stronger than I ever gave you credit for." I had to be. The words weren't bitter, just honest. Later, as he was leaving, my father paused at the door. "Rowena, I can't undo the past, but I'd like to be part of your future, if you'll let me." I looked at this man who'd failed me in so many ways, but who was finally trying. "One step at a time," I said. He smiled, sad but hopeful. "One step at a time." The next few months were quiet. Healing isn't dramatic. It's small moments stacked on top of each other. My father started calling every Sunday. He'd ask about Myra's school, Ian's projects, my job at the library. Normal things. Family things. Vivian, meanwhile, disappeared from our lives completely. No calls. No emails. Just silence. I heard through mutual acquaintances that she was doing well, whatever that meant. Part of me wondered if she ever thought about what she'd lost. If she ever regretted the lies. But mostly, I didn't think about her at all. One afternoon, I was sorting through old boxes in the attic, spring cleaning, when I found a photo album I'd forgotten about. My mother's album. I sat cross-legged on the dusty floor and flipped through pages. My mother laughing in the garden. My father young and smiling. Me as a toddler, chubby-cheeked and happy. Vivian wasn't in any of these photos. She'd tried so hard to erase my mother, to rewrite our history. But the truth had always been here, waiting quietly in a box. I brought the album downstairs. Showed Mira pictures of the grandmother she'd never met. "She's pretty," Mira said softly. "Do I look like her?" "You have her smile," I said. And I meant it. That night, I put the album on the living room shelf, right next to our family photos. Past and present, together. Vivian had tried to control the narrative. But stories don't belong to the loudest voice. They belong to the truth. And the truth was this. I'd survived. I'd protected my daughter. I'd found my voice. And I was finally, truly free. But freedom I was about to discover sometimes comes with unexpected visitors. 2 months later, my phone rang at 9 p.m. Caller ID, Vivian Blake. I stared at it, heart suddenly pounding. Ian looked over from the couch. "You going to answer?" My finger hovered over the screen. After everything, the lies, the court, the years of cruelty, she was calling me. I hesitated, then answered. "Hello." Silence on the other end. Then, a voice I barely recognized.
Soft.
Fragile.
Broken.
"Rowena, I just wanted to say I'm sorry. For everything." I stood in my kitchen, phone pressed to my ear, waiting for the punchline. Because Vivian didn't apologize. She justified. She deflected. She rewrote history until she was always the hero. But this voice, small and shaking, didn't sound like the woman who'd terrorized my childhood. "Rowena," she said again. "Are you there?" "I'm here." Silence stretched between us like a gulf. "I know I don't deserve your forgiveness," she continued. "I know I've been cruel. But I wanted you to know that I'm sorry. I'm seeing a therapist now. And she's helping me understand things I couldn't before." I leaned against the counter, processing. Part of me wanted to hang up, to protect myself from whatever manipulation this might be. But another part, the part that remembered being 11 years old and desperate for this woman's approval, wanted to listen. "What made you call?" I asked carefully. "Your father's health isn't good." My chest tightened. "What do you mean?" "He had a mild heart attack 2 weeks ago. He's okay now, but..." She paused. "It scared him."
And it scared me.
"He wants to see you. Wants us to reconcile. For the holidays." There it was. The ask. "Vivian," I said slowly, "I'm glad you're working on yourself. But I can't pretend the past didn't happen. I'm not asking you to." Her voice cracked. "I'm just asking if you'll visit your father.
He misses you.
He talks about Mira constantly." I closed my eyes. My father had been calling every Sunday like clockwork. He'd never mentioned a heart attack. Why didn't he tell me? He didn't want you to worry. You know how he is. I did know. My father had always hidden his pain, worn his armor even when it was crushing him. "I'll visit Dad," I said finally. "But not you." Silence. Then, a soft, broken whisper. "I understand." "Vivian," I added, "I hope therapy helps. I really do. But you can't undo 20 years of hurt with one phone call." "I know." She sounded like she was crying. "I just needed you to know I'm sorry. Even if you never forgive me." The line went quiet for a moment. Then she hung up. I stood there, phone in hand, emotions swirling. Ian came into the kitchen. What did she say? Dad had a heart attack. She wants us to reconcile. And I told her I'd visit him. Not her. He pulled me into a hug. That's fair. That weekend, I drove to my father's house alone. Ian stayed with Mira. I needed to do this by myself. My father answered the door, looking thinner than I remembered. But his smile was genuine. Rowena, he said, pulling me into a hug. I'm so glad you came. We sat in his living room, the one Vivian had redecorated years ago. But now it felt different. Softer somehow. Like the house was exhaling after holding its breath too long. Why didn't you tell me about your heart? I asked. He looked down. Because I didn't want you to feel obligated. I wanted you to come because you wanted to, not because you felt guilty. Dad, I would have come either way. I know. But I'm trying to do things differently now. No more guilt. No more manipulation. Just honesty. We talked for hours. About his health, about Vivian, about the years we'd lost. She called you, didn't she? He asked.
Yeah.
What did you say? That I'd visit you. But not her. He nodded slowly. She's trying, Rowena. I don't know if it's real, or if it's just fear of being alone. But she's trying. That doesn't erase what she did. No, he agreed. It doesn't. We sat in comfortable silence. Outside, snow started falling, the first of the season. I updated my will. My father said quietly. Everything's in trust for Mira now. Educational expenses, living costs when she's older. You're the executor. Dad. I should have protected you years ago, he interrupted. I can't fix the past. But I can make sure Mira never has to struggle the way you did. Tears filled my eyes. Thank you. It's not enough. But it's a start. Before I left, he walked me to the door. The snow was falling heavier now, blanketing the world in white. Rowena, he said, I know I failed you. I know I chose wrong for too many years. But I want you to know, I'm proud of you. Of the woman you became despite everything. I hugged him tight. I love you, Dad. I love you too, sweetheart. Driving home through the snow, I felt something shift inside me. Not forgiveness exactly, but understanding. My father had been trapped too, in Vivian's web of control and guilt. He was trying to break free now, just like I had. And maybe that was all any of us could do. When I got home, Mira was already asleep. Ian had left the porch light on for me. I walked inside, hung up my coat, and found a new message on my phone. From my father's lawyer. Trust documents finalized. Full estate transferred to educational trust for Mira Blake. Vivian Blake removed from will entirely. Documents attached. I opened the attachment. Scanned the legal language. Everything my father owned, the house, his savings, his investments, would go to Mira when he passed. Vivian would get nothing. Justice wasn't just the courtroom. It was this. Quiet. Permanent. Complete. That night, I climbed into bed next to Ian. He wrapped his arms around me. How'd it go? He murmured. Good, I whispered. Really good. That's what healing sounds like. And he was right. Healing wasn't loud. It wasn't dramatic. It was just this peace, finally in the quiet. 6 months passed like water smoothing river stones. My father visited twice a month. He'd bring groceries, help Ian with house projects, play board games with Mira. Slowly, carefully, we rebuilt something that felt like family. Vivian stayed in Michigan. We heard updates through the grapevine. She'd gotten a job at a boutique, was focusing on herself, had stopped posting those inspirational quotes online. I didn't reach out.
Didn't feel the need to.
Some relationships aren't meant to be repaired. Some people teach you lessons by showing you exactly who they are. And Vivian had taught me the most important lesson of all. Peace is more valuable than approval. One Saturday afternoon, I was organizing the hall closet when I found an old shoebox pushed to the back. Inside were letters, dozens of them, yellowed with age. Letters from my mother. I sat on the floor, heart pounding, and opened the first one. It was addressed to me, dated for my 18th birthday. My dearest Rowena, it began. If you're reading this, it means I'm not there to watch you grow up. But I want you to know how proud I am of you. You have a gentle heart and a strong spirit. Never let anyone convince you that kindness is weakness. Tears streamed down my face as I read letter after letter. My mother had written them while she was sick, knowing she wouldn't be there for the milestones. Graduation, wedding, first child. She'd hidden them in the attic, and somehow they'd survived Vivian's purge. The last letter was dated for my 30th birthday, 2 years ago. By now, you've learned that life is complicated, my mother wrote. You've probably faced betrayal, heartbreak, loss. But I hope you've also found love, joy, and peace. Remember, sweetheart, you don't have to earn your place in this world. You belong here simply because you exist. Never forget that. I clutched the letter to my chest and sobbed. Not from sadness, but from relief. My mother had seen me, had loved me, had believed in me before I even knew I'd need that belief. That evening, I showed the letters to Mira. She sat beside me, careful with the delicate paper, eyes wide. Your grandma wrote these? She asked. Yeah, before she died. She sounds nice.
She was.
She would have loved you so much. Mira studied a photo tucked into one of the envelopes, my mother holding baby me, both of us laughing. I'm glad you found these, Mommy. Me too, baby. Me too. That night, after Mira went to bed, I sat on the back porch with Ian. The summer air was warm, fireflies blinking in the yard like tiny stars. You've been quiet tonight, Ian said. Just thinking. About how everything came full circle. Vivian tried so hard to erase my mother. But the truth was always there, waiting to be found. He squeezed my hand. Truth has a way of surfacing. We sat in comfortable silence, watching Myra's bedroom light flicker off. Do you think Vivian ever regrets it? Ian asked. Really regrets it?
I thought about that.
I think she regrets the consequences. Losing my dad, losing the money, losing her image. But I don't know if she regrets hurting me. Does it matter? I smiled.
No.
It doesn't. Because my healing wasn't dependent on her remorse. It never had been. 2 weeks later, my father called with news. His house had sold. He was downsizing, moving into a smaller place near us. I want to be close to you and Mira, he explained. Whatever time I have left, I want to spend it with family. Real family. Moving day was chaos. Ian and my father hauled furniture while Mira and I unpacked boxes. We laughed, ate pizza on the floor, felt something like wholeness. At one point, my father pulled me aside. I found this in the attic, he said, handing me a small wooden box. Your mother made it. I thought you should have it. Inside was a collection of my mother's jewelry. Nothing expensive, but meaningful. Her wedding ring. A locket with my baby photo. A charm bracelet I remembered her wearing. Dad. She would have wanted you to have it.
His voice cracked.
I should have given it to you years ago. But Vivian said it was too painful to keep around. I hugged him. Thank you. For finally choosing me. I should have chosen you from the start. That night, I put on my mother's locket. The metal was cool against my skin, familiar somehow. Looking in the mirror, I saw her in my face. The shape of my eyes. The curve of my smile. Vivian had tried to make me forget where I came from. But roots grow deep, even in darkness. And mine had finally broken through into light. The phone rang late one night, nearly 11 p.m. I almost didn't answer. Caller ID, Vivian Blake. Ian raised an eyebrow. Again? I hesitated, then picked up. Rowena, Vivian said, voice tight. I need to tell you something. I almost hung up, but something in her voice stopped me. Not manipulation this time.
Fear.
What is it?
I asked.
I'm sick, she said quietly. The doctors found something. Ovarian cancer. Stage 3. The words hung in the air like smoke. I'm sorry, I said. And I meant it. Because despite everything, I wasn't cruel. I'm not calling for sympathy, she continued. I'm calling because I've been thinking about my life. About the things I've done. the people I've hurt. And I realized something. She paused. I spent 20 years trying to prove I belonged in your family, and I destroyed it instead. I didn't respond, didn't know what to say. I was jealous of you, she whispered. Of your mother. Of how much your father loved her. I thought if I erased her, he'd love me that way. But you can't erase love, Rowena. It just stays. Tears filled my eyes. Not for her, but for the broken woman behind the cruelty. I'm not asking for forgiveness, she said. I know I don't deserve it. I just wanted you to know the truth. Before it's too late. Vivian, I said softly, I hope you find peace. I really do. Thank you, she whispered. And Rowena? Tell Mira, tell her I'm sorry I wasn't a better grandmother. The line went quiet. Then she hung up. I stood there in my dark kitchen, phone in hand, feeling something I never expected.
Pity.
Vivian had spent her life chasing an image, a version of love that required control and perfection. And in the end, she'd lost everything real. Ian came in, wrapped his arms around me. You okay? Yeah, I said. I think I am. 3 months later, I heard through my father that Vivian had passed, quietly in hospice, with her sister by her side. My father didn't go to the funeral. Neither did I. Some endings don't need witnesses. That weekend, my father came over for dinner. He looked lighter somehow, like a weight had finally lifted. I've been thinking about your mother, he said as we ate. About how much she would have loved seeing you now.
Strong. Happy.
Free. I found her letters, I told him. In the attic. His eyes widened. What letters? She wrote them before she died. For my future. Vivian must have hidden them. He was quiet for a long moment. Then, I'm glad you found them. Your mother's voice should never have been silenced. After dinner, Mira curled up next to me on the couch. Mommy, did the mean grandma die? Yes, sweetheart. Are you sad?
I thought about that.
I'm sad that she never found happiness. But I'm not sad that she's gone from our lives. Mira nodded, processing. That makes sense. Children understand things we complicate. That night, I tucked Mira into bed. She looked up at me with sleepy eyes. Mommy? Yeah, baby? I'm glad you're brave. What makes you say that? Because you stood up to the mean grandma. And you didn't let her make you mean too. I kissed her forehead. That's the most important part, isn't it? Not letting hurt people make us hurt people. She smiled. Yeah. Months turned into years. My father's health stabilized. Mira grew taller, smarter, kinder. Ian built us a new deck where we spent summer evenings watching fireflies. And me? I finally stopped looking over my shoulder, waiting for the other shoe to drop. One afternoon, I was shelving books at the library when a young woman approached me. She looked nervous, maybe 20 years old. Excuse me, she said. Are you Rowena Blake? I am. I heard your story. About your stepmother. About standing up for yourself. She hesitated. I'm dealing with something similar. And I wanted to know how you did it. How you stayed strong. I smiled. I stopped waiting for permission to protect my peace. She nodded slowly. Thank you. That helps. As she walked away, I realized something profound. My pain had purpose. Not because suffering is noble, but because survival creates roadmaps for others still lost in the dark. That night, I sat on our back deck, watching the sunset paint the sky pink and gold. Ian sat beside me. Mira played in the yard. My father dozed in a chair nearby. This was my family. Chosen, protected, real. Vivian had tried to teach me that love was transactional. That family meant obligation. But she was wrong. Love is boundary. Love is truth. Love is saying no to cruelty and yes to peace. And sometimes, the loudest revenge isn't fire or fury. It's simply this: living well, loving hard, and refusing to let bitterness steal your joy. I learned that you can't change people who don't see themselves clearly. You can only change how much space you give them in your life. Vivian is gone now, but the lessons remain. Protect your children. Choose your peace. Stand in your truth. Because quiet justice doesn't need an audience. It just needs you, standing firm, refusing to be moved. And that, in the end, is the greatest victory of all. If this story touched you, if it made you think about your own boundaries and peace, leave a comment below. Share your thoughts. Inspire others who might be fighting similar battles. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications, because everyone deserves to hear stories of quiet strength and hard-won freedom. Your story matters. Your peace matters. And you are never alone. Thank you for being part of this family. Until next time, protect your peace. And remember, the truth always finds its way home.